Thank you, listeners, for joining us. It is time for Elko Live and checking in with a city update today in advance of this afternoon's regular meeting. The regular meeting's at 4, but there's a redevelopment agency meeting at 3. And the perfect person to bring us up to date on all this exciting news is Jan Baum, our Elko City Manager. It's great to see you, Jan. Thank you.
Nice to see you as well, Lori. It's been a couple weeks or a few weeks, so it's very nice to see you again.
Oh, thanks, Jan. It's great to get caught up, and even that 2 weeks in between gives the city staff a bit of a breather when it comes to council, but that means there's a lot on the agenda. And so we just want to remind everyone a lot of ways to participate. You can be there in person, of course, at City Hall, but you can also follow along online, which is very convenient.
Absolutely. If you'd rather see the video, there's always just following along on video, or there's the go-to meeting where that is interactive. So both of them are a good option.
Yep.
And call in as well.
Oh, yes. Kelly Wooldridge does an excellent job. She's the city clerk, and she does a great job in managing all those comments. I mean, she just keeps it all rolling. So it's admirable.
She does.
So first of all, I guess since it starts at 3, we can mention that there is a redevelopment agency meeting, and that'll be to consider, some new business, but also to kind of recap a bit of business. The RDA, the General Improvement District, has a healthy fund balance, which is great. And there are some allocations that have been made, some things that are coming. Some of them are tied to public art, which is really cool. And it's all about creating a better experience for the business, traveling, and resident community.
Absolutely. And the RDA is all about the downtown redevelopment area. And it's always great to have artwork and just different improvements to that downtown area to make it more inviting for our public and for businesses.
Sometimes that means curb, gutter, and sidewalks. Sometimes it means hardscaping or landscaping. Parking lots are a big one. We do know that the Stockmans, there's just under $100,000 set aside. That's still a work in progress. We know that that's been approved, but it's still to come.
Absolutely. I don't have all of the details behind that Stockman's parking lot, but I think that there's some participation requirements in there, and it would be wonderful to get that parking lot finished.
Yep, that's still on the books, so that's good to know. And that'll be, I think, explained during this afternoon's 3 o'clock RDA meeting. There's a balance of about $1.8 million, almost 1.8. Getting up there, so that's good.
Yes, those are the all the revenues that will come into that fund, or the available balance. And of course, one of the biggest expenditures we have for that fund are the storefront, the grants. It's a great opportunity for businesses downtown to get a little refresh on their storefront, and the city or the RDA will pay half of that, up to $50,000.
So it's important to know, if you've been driving around and admiring buildings like the Gerber Law Offices or Jeff Dowling's Dowling Hall, even the Western Folklife Center improvements, those are just a few of the many, many projects, the downtown improvements. And if you're a property owner within the General Improvement District, Jan, you can certainly apply for this funding too. Yes,
you can. And I wish I had that information here, but yes, you can contact the city planner. Kathy Laughlin takes care of the redevelopment area, and she or her assistant could help you get an application.
Walk you right through it. So the meeting for RDA is at 3 o'clock today. The Elko City Council is the RDA deciding factor, I guess you will. There's an advisory committee which meets regularly or quarterly, I think it's safe to say. And so there'll be reports on the budget. As we just sort of mentioned, there's a healthy fund right now. More information during today's meeting about the storefront grant program, as it's called. And then the downtown idea exchange. It's an action, not an action item. It's just for information only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, their advisory committee is called the RAC, and the RDA advisory committee. So, and they meet, I believe you're right, quarterly.
That sounds great. So if you're interested, again, you can watch online, watch in person, but get up to date. There's some exciting developments on the way, I think, including some new art projects to encourage more development and more participation downtown. And then, Jan, I know the 4 o'clock city council meeting, it's busy, and we should probably jump right in. And among the first items on the agenda, looking at maybe tweaking the position for a full-time code enforcement officer, and then you're in need of a new development manager, is that right?
Yes, so the code enforcement position is currently a part-time position, but with the upcoming budget, council approved for that position to be a full-time position. So we're changing that position from part-time to full-time. And then the development manager, that before we opened that up, we wanted to do an update of that job description, and that's why it's on the consent agenda. And just a little plug, we have that position open, and it's on our website. And if anybody is interested in a development manager position, please feel free to apply.
And I think that the people that we've talked to in the past who've had this job, I mean, it's been satisfying on a lot of different levels. I mean, you work with engaged city staff, and you can really make a difference, I guess, in your community.
I believe so, and they kind of manage that process for our developers from the beginning application all the way through the entire process, and they're very important for our community and developing.
Then under personnel on the council agenda today, Deputy Fire Chief Joel Finley will be sworn in, and we got to meet him a couple of weeks ago, Jan.
Yes, we did, and we're excited about that, and I think Chief Johnston is very excited about that, and so we will start off the meeting. That'll be our first exciting item, is to swear in Deputy Chief Joel Finley.
And those are always wonderful ceremonies that usually involve family, so it's nice.
Absolutely. And the fire department, for
yes,
sure.
Yeah, big on ceremony and certainly on tradition too. And then under unfinished business, I guess if we just skip around a bit, since we do have a busy agenda today.
It's busy.
Yes. Any review of the legislative session? I know the dust is starting to settle on that one, Jan, and wondered if you had any insight on what might be most impactful to us.
So Kelly Woldridge, our city clerk, would be the person to give you the best information. There were a few bills that we were following. Interesting enough, I guess there were more vetoes this session than ever. There was 75 or 76 vetoes. And then there were a lot of bills that just didn't get signed, that just went into effect. One of the major ones that we were following, but it has a lot of amendments and changed a lot and is very open to interpretation, is SB 226, which is about the prevailing wage and extending the prevailing wage. We believe that a lot of the amendments were positive. So, and then 433, which was also similar, about prevailing wage, and that one was vetoed. But there'll be a good summary, and it is attached in our agenda. There'll be a good summary by Kelly for the legislative session, and then there was a special session as well that went on a few days after. I think it adjourned June 14th, and anyway, and of course they had a lot of snow days at the beginning of legislature, and so I think that that's part of the reason why there was that it was extended. Do you have any specific questions?
I don't think so. I think you're absolutely right in that Kelly, the city clerk, who was monitoring a lot of this legislative activity because it directly impacts, her administration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she'll give that right at the top of the agenda, practically under unfinished business, and people should know a lot more. I know we've been having conversations with Bert Gurr, and he feels pretty good about air service development, which ties into our next agenda item under new business.
Yes. So there was an assembly bill that passed having to do with airport development and AIP matching, and so that'll be really great for our state.
And more to come on that. The City Council today will possibly approve a 3-month transportation service agreement between SkyWest, and that is to literally keep the flights aloft. So it's important to know, I think it's about 370 or 380,000?
Yes, right around 369,000 per quarter. And basically this helps SkyWest. We are an at-risk market, and so in order to keep the airline coming into Elko, this revenue, minimum revenue guarantee is what it's called. Everybody calls it an MRG, sorry about that. And it helps SkyWest to kind of break even to come into Elko. And so this is a big item, and we've been renewing this quarterly just because of a lot of things are going on in the airline industry right now, and so they are only committing to quarterly. And then on the heels of that, if we can talk about that, we've been working on an air alliance, which would be a combination or a partnership, I should say, of public and private entities in our area, not just in Elko, but in the catchment area, which is the area that the Elko Regional Airport serves. And so we're asking council to go forward with this a nonprofit, and this nonprofit would be for the community to help with the MRG and as well as marketing our area and helping keep that flight full, which in turn will hopefully decrease our MRG. So the new nonprofit will be called Flight Alliance of Northeastern Nevada, which the acronym is FANN, F-A-N-N.
And again, it does involve, it would be a collaboration. Once it's approved, you can start getting that off the ground. And whether or not you have meetings, or I'm sure that will all be advertised or promoted to the public, right, Jan?
Yes, it's so preliminary, but I absolutely think that it'll be advertised to the public, and we'll be doing a lot of education on the airline industry and Elko Regional Airport and the benefits that the airport brings to our community as a whole. And I think that's an education item that really needs to happen in our community. People take it for granted, and if we didn't have an airline, a commercial airline, it would be very difficult, if at all, to do economic development or bring companies into our area, or big events, Cowboy Poetry or the Mine Expo, or there's some big events that come into our area and that utilize commercial air service.
And plus, by forming this nonprofit FANN, the Flight Alliance of Northeastern Nevada, it helps to ease that burden that the city taxpayers have been absorbing, and that is those the minimum service guarantee, Jan, because it's pretty pricey. And this way, it's a public-private partnership. That's the goal.
Absolutely, it honestly is an expenditure that the city can't continue to pay on its own. It's coming to approximately $1.4 to $1.5 million a year, and it's just something we don't have in our budget. And we're hoping, and the county has committed to help us out. They put $500,000 into their budget for fiscal year 2024, which we are very grateful. And they see that the Elko Regional Airport is an asset for the entire area, not just the city. And so anyway, they're the first partner, but hoping that once we get the Flight Alliance of Northeastern Nevada formed, then we can go out and get additional partners, both private and public.
So that'll be the first step of this formal organization during this afternoon's council meeting, right?
Absolutely.
Very cool, Jan. And again, thanks for your work. And I know that the seeds were sown even before your tenure as our city manager, but that you also worked hard on that in the months leading up to it. So thank you for seeing it through.
Thank you. You're right. And you're right. Curtis Calder was a part of this as well. And we're excited to just keep going forward.
All right. Also under new business, some folks are wondering about the conveyances of land. And there are two separate agenda items. One to convey, let's see, we could probably start with the pool. That's what's commonly referred to as the recreation center, but that's an aquatic center with an attached recreation type building, Jan, and it only encompasses a couple of acres right now, right?
Yes, it's kind of a strange little parcel, but it's enough to get this project going, and for us to keep the current pool and keep it operating while this construction could start. As many people know, the outdoor pool currently is closed. It needs a lot of repairs. It's got some problems, so that is closed, and the indoor pool is open. We have lessons going on. We have swim team going on. We have open swim. It's a busy place, and I think the public as a whole is very excited for this recreation center to come to our area. And so this area, which I see you're looking at, it skirts around Johnny Appleseed and then includes the parking lot that is close to Cumpfield in the area that we would convey. And I want to make sure that the public is aware that this is the contract to start the conveyance. It's not the actual conveyance. It's a pretty lengthy contract between the city of Elko and the Boys and Girls Club of Elko, and it starts the process.
All right, so that's on the agenda today. And then there is a separate agenda item for a division of just over 11 acres into 2 parcels. That's north of Golf Course Road and College Avenue, south of Country Club Drive and Morin Way. And that's commonly referred to, I think, as the baseball fields. We've got Comp and Herrera.
Well, actually, item B, this creates 2 parcels. And actually what this is doing is creating 2 parcels actually where the pool is. So it creates a parcel that we are going to recommend for conveying to the Elko Boys and Girls Club for the recreation center, and then the rest of the park will be the other parcel. So that's where the 11.6 acres comes from. So this is creating the parcel that will be conveyed to the Boys and Girls Club for the recreation center.
Oh, I see. And it's shown right there on the map, the attachment.
Yes, so that's
Okay.
one of the parcels, and then the other parcel is the rest of that park. And part of the reason for that is at our last meeting, we discussed that there is a possible encumbrance on the Herrera fields, and that could take years, if at all, to get approval to move those fields so that we can put a different outdoor facility there. And we don't really have years for the recreation center. So council gave us direction to move the proposed area for the rec center. And so this is the area that was proposed. So our city engineer, Bob Thibault, has been very busy surveying and getting that parcel prepared. And so we are going to declare the parcel, create the parcel. Our council will approve that in item B of new business, and then in item C of new business, that parcel will go into the contract to begin the conveyance.
I see. Thank you so much for taking the time and explaining that, Jan, because it is more difficult for someone who's not been closely involved. Because you're right, item D is a very separate agenda item, and that is the conveyance, the possible approval of the contract to purchase or sell public property for the event center, which is an entirely different prospect, right?
Yes, it's a totally different prospect, and council approved this, oh gosh, it's been months and months ago, probably 6 months ago, where they approved to go forward with this event center. It was kind of together as a recreation center and an event center, but we're kind of splitting those apart because they have some different challenges. And so, yes, item D is starting the contract, which will begin the process. It is not the actual conveyance, but it is the contract to begin the process of the conveyance. And there are some items on that I would like to point out in this contract that in order for the conveyance of the land to close, there will have to be a conditional use permit approved by the city, and they'll have to meet some permitting requirements, surveying requirements, and there's a 3-year time period to get approval from the Department of Interior for the federal land and water conservation encumbrance that we believe is on that land. We still are in some researching this potential, and anyway, that is written in here as a contingency for the closing.
And that was important too for the community, since some people were under the impression that maybe the event center was not going in that location. So this clears up all that information by you saying, too, it's just a conveyance. It's the beginning of the conveyance, and there's
Yes.
still work to be done.
Absolutely.
I know one of the big questions that people have asked is what's happening to the skate park, and that's also included in this packet, right?
Yes, the skate park is not in the area that would be conveyed if all of the contingencies are met. If indeed it ended up that the skate park was needed for the event center, then it is written into the contract that that would have to be moved to another location, and it would have to be the same or a better facility. And there's there's an item in that contract to cover the skate park.
And I read that, and it explained, at least my interpretation was that it would be the buyer's responsibility to relocate it. It would be their expense as well.
Yes,
So,
that's how the contract is written.
Okay. The other question is, if Kump and Herrera were to be, conveyed to boys and girls, the other confusion, I think, Jan, was since there's no phase 2 of the sports complex, what would happen to the ball fields? But it sounds like maybe that's a premature question.
Yes, I believe that I believe that the Elko Boys and Girls Club, I got a phone call this morning that they are going to address that in this contract. That will be something that they would like changed. Currently in the contract, it states that they have 6 years to construct the event center after the approval from the Department of Interior, and they would like wording in there that also says 6 years after the completion of phase 2 of the sports complex. So, which, yes, if the event center does go in, the sports complex needs to be completed first. So there are fields for our players to play on, most definitely.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, Department of Interior, that has to do with the encumbrance. That's the National Park System, I think. Is that part of the...
Yes, and that is the item that we are still in the process of researching. And apparently the 2 Herrera fields were constructed with federal funds, with the federal conservation. And there are some rules per se that were agreed to when the grants came into effect, I believe in 1979, which is a long time ago. So during our due diligence, we found that, and so full disclosure, we are researching that and looking into this possible conversion process that they are explaining to us.
All right, Jan. I think the last question I had that I said I would ask our city manager is if traffic studies would be done in the vicinity of the event center. You probably get that question a lot.
Right. I would imagine that part of the CUP, the conditional use permit, will likely include a traffic study.
Just to refresh people who are following this issue, the event center, again, that we've just been talking about is separate from the pool, and that's separate from the rec center. The pool and the rec center would go on the approximate 2-acre site that the city's considering beginning the conveyance of during this afternoon's meeting. The event center is very different. It's a 60 to 70,000 square foot building. It would include 34,000 feet or more of expo floor space and seating of up to 7,000. It would have the ability to convert to indoor basketball and volleyball courts, to a PRCA regulation rodeo arena, to a concert hall. It would have a front lobby, concessions, kitchen, stage, space for merchandising, and multi-purpose rooms, as well as parking.
Yes, I got that information from one. There were actually 2 presentations to city council, I believe in 2021 and 2022. So I got that information from there, and it was a good summary of what would be included in the event center. And then I believe there's one for the recreation center as well, which would include an indoor pool, outdoor pool, a basketball court, a rec center, of course addressing a space that would include individualized spaces for like families or people to change, and then and also a fitness facility.
Right, and that's all included on that existing pool spot, and I think that was the plan B because it allows the construction to begin soon, right away.
Absolutely. That's our hope anyway. I think, we all know, we keep talking about how the pool is on its last leg, and we're happy that it's open, and we're happy that we're able to accommodate swim lessons, which are so important, and open swim for the children during the summer, and swim team, and then lap swimming. Of course, all of these, they have a lot of activity going down at the pool with only one pool, but they're doing their best, and they're doing an awesome job.
They really are. You have, as we've talked about many times, city staff is very committed, and they're very passionate about what they do. Jan, you have...
Absolutely. Nikki is, she's a rock star down there, and she makes it all happen, and she has a lot of connections with some amazing summer help, and they do a great job at giving swim lessons, so we're thankful for them.
And everything that we've talked about is available in online form. You can research all these, the packets are all attached, and those maps that we were just describing, elcocity.com, attached to the agenda item. You click on those blue links, listeners, if that's something, because people say, well, I didn't see that on the agenda. You just click on the blue link, and the information comes right up.
Yes, actually, I like how it works. It's so much better than the way we used to do it, and you're right. Just click on the blue writing, and it should pop up
with all of the information you need. And again, this afternoon's meeting, RDA meetings at 3, to be followed by the regular council meeting. And all this is discussed under unfinished business. And I know we do have some more things we're going to get to. I did want to mention that the city is being asked to participate in the geothermal system upgrade. That could also take some discussion because that's pretty extensive, I know. I'll just let you explain.
Yes, it's going to be a very extensive project, and so recently Annette Kerr with the ECVA was approached by her auditors, Eide Bailey, and informing her that there are some federal funds available for geothermal projects, and so she brought that to the attention of everybody, all of the users that would be in that area, and so I just bringing it to council for their input on whether they want to be involved in the geothermal upgrade or not. Currently, after the pool is no longer the city of Elko's, then the only property that would be part of the geothermal loop for the city of Elko would be City Hall. And whereas the other players per se, ECVA and the school district is the biggest player, and then of course the Boys and Girls Club will be a pretty big player as well with the new pool, and then and their current Boys and Girls Club, I don't know if they're on the geothermal loop or not, but anyways, so they've been meeting, and so I just want council's direction on if they want to be part of that. It's going to be a very expensive project, and so we need to look at the economics of it and whether it makes sense for the city of Elko.
Right. It could be a pretty big ask, as you said, justifying it'll be a multi-million-dollar plan to reinvest in geothermal. So.
I believe so, to repair and get that loop going again and usable. I would think that it'll be millions of dollars, but of course there might be a grant opportunity to help pay for it. So,
Jan Baum is our city manager, and I know we have a couple more minutes to get to a couple more things. If we're skipping around on the agenda, hopefully we didn't gloss over something you are interested in, listeners, but there is a conveyance, or not a conveyance. Oh, it is a conveyance. Thank you for the terminology. And in full disclosure, I do sit on the Committee Against Domestic Violence Board of Directors, and it's something I
didn't know that, Lori. Wonderful.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, I'm very, very proud to do that. It's a very important service in this community, and so this item is to convey their property, of which the Harbor House Shelter is located, and so I just wanted to make sure people knew that obviously I would think that would be in the best interest of CADV, but that there is precedent for this, right, Jan? Yes,
and we've been leasing that at below fair market value for a long time to the Committee Against Domestic Violence, and it's a great organization in our community. We're so proud to be part of that, and they are just looking for some granting opportunities. And it's better if they own the land than lease the land, and so it makes sense for both parties. And so that's on the agenda, and hoping that City Council will approve that.
Yes, and there is precedence, and it does give a certain independence to the organization. And Jan, you really put it well. It just enables the committee to the board of directors to pursue, and the staff, they're the ones that do the heavy lifting, to pursue the grant funding, which will enable that shelter to grow as is necessary. So again, thanks to board members and everybody who's supporting that. That'll be under resolution and ordinance form. And then there is also, the budget's going to be augmented. And since that used to be your baby, I thought you might want to mention that.
Right. This is, it is kind of a year-end housekeeping item. So the augmentation, Lowell is working on that right now. That might change a little bit, but there were some ARPA grants that were given that weren't included in the original budget, and so we may need to augment for that. And then the year-end transfers, that's kind of a housekeeping item, but it's important. And so Lowell will be presenting those, Lowell Black.
Thank you, Jan, and thanks for, smooth, such a seamless transition in those positions and the work that you're doing on behalf of the city and the support that Lowell is given too. So it shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, in closing, I just want to make sure that we got to the topics that were most pressing to you today. I know there are quite a few agenda items today.
It's a full agenda for sure. And I did want to mention there is one more that is new business item I, which is the veteran cemetery that is going in on Jennings and north of town. And it's a big project. We're proud to be a part of it. That is just asking actually for council approval in the fiscal year 2025 budget, which is a year away, to include some public improvements to get the road improvements up to the cemetery, so that we can get that project going. It's important to our community, and we're happy to be part of that project. And that they're willing to bring a VA cemetery to our area is a privilege.
That's huge. That will serve the entire region, and I'm sure will increase visitation. You know, we hate to think about something as solemn and in a way that we memorialize and we honor people. To be that final resting place is really an honor, and the fact that it would bring in families and that we could host something like this is so meaningful, and it's for generations to come.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's just it's an honor and a privilege to be to have a VA cemetery in the city of Elko, and so anyway.
It'll do great things for that area of town as well. It's North 5th Street area, Jennings Way, and Rocky Road, and that kind of development can only lead to more improvements.
Absolutely.
Well, Jan, as always, thank you for your time. We really appreciate the city, hosting Elko Live and bringing this opportunity for people just to be up to date on all of these significant issues on behalf of us. So.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on, and we have we're very busy at the city, and we're happy to be busy, and we're happy to be serving the public. So thank you.
Yes, and you do it very well and transparently, and find out more online or be at the meetings. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today here on KELK.